Story 1. He reads a lot and has stored much random information. However, when it comes to expressing an original opinion, it is as if he was just summoned to Earth yesterday. Story 2. When she put her hand over her speedometer because, as she said, the speed camera up ahead will just get a photo of my hand and won't be able to read the speed on the speedometer. We all just stopped and stared. She was the top student of our school, by the way. Story 3. He knew a lot of hard facts, but when it came to applying them and thinking critically, his brain would struggle. This became apparent when I asked him to help me set up something related to his field of expertise, and he kept making rookie mistakes that I kept catching. This also showed me that whenever he was completely wrong about something and it was pointed out, instead of admitting he was wrong, he would try to deceive his way out of it or get angry. Story 4. One man I know was caught having Siri listen to all his conversations, and he would listen to the answers to any questions he was asked through the earphones he wore because it helped drown out the tinnitus. It was very awkward when he got caught. Story 5. When he said women go into menopause in their early 30s and that is why he was not worried about his then-girlfriend getting pregnant. As she was 38, I immediately questioned everything he ever said. Story 6. He is book smart but has zero common sense. He will argue about something but bend things he has already said to avoid points you are making because he would rather be seen as smart than actually be smart. Story 7. He said, I do not believe in gravity. If it were real, birds would not be able to fly. I thought he was joking. He was dead serious. Story 8. When he thought he could get away with bribing a judge, all that time and effort put into law school went down the drain. Story 9. When she let a group of 4 to 5 men into our ground level, back alley Airbnb in downtown Toronto at approximately 2 a.m. because they knew the person in the basement and he would not let them in from the outside. Story 10. It's me. I'm the smart one who turned out to be stupid. All my friends over the years have said how smart I am, but here I am at 47 with no college education, no retirement savings, no pension, and a 9-to-5 job that I might work at until I die. I am also possibly facing a divorce by the end of the year. Yes, real smart there, fella. Story 11. When my former coworker said that she does not wear a seatbelt, even though she drives 95 to 100 miles per hour, because she wants to be able to escape her car when she crashes and it catches on fire, I kindly informed her that at the speed she likes to drive, she will absolutely not have to worry about being trapped in a burning car. Story 12. My brother, who has alpha-gal syndrome, is saying that it is actually a government psychological operation. Like, bro, you literally cannot eat a burger without getting hives and itching. I promise you this is not government gaslighting. You straight up got bitten by a tick. Story 13. That moment when we spent 10 minutes arguing that left is left and right is right, I would just call it a brain lag. Story 14. She thought she should buy brand name canned foods like Del Monte because she wanted to support the Del Monte family. She believed they were a family business instead of a huge multinational conglomerate corporation. Story 15. When he confidently said that tomatoes are vegetables because they grow underground, I did not even know where to start. Story 16. Leave her husband who loved her unconditionally and worked extremely hard for her ex, whom she dumped several times in the past, who is on welfare and does nothing all day. Story 17. 180 CI. Doctor and mathematician. Strange nerd too. His only friends are me and the people I introduce him to. He met my date and spent 2 hours hitting on her, visibly aroused. I have not spoken to him since. I know he lives a sad, alone, secluded life. He had one friend and lost him. So smart. Did he not predict what would happen if he tried to hit on his only friend's girl? Story 18. I remember once my smart friend said the moon does not spin because we always see the same side. I tried to explain how it does rotate just at the same rate it orbits Earth, but he insisted I was making it up. That is when I realized he was good at sounding smart, but not so great at thinking things through. Story 19. He insisted that Qantas, the Australian airline, had a U in it because U always comes after Q. I thought he was joking, but he was not. Qantas stands for Queensland and Northern Territory Aerial Services. Story 20. They went down the wellness rabbit hole and are now spouting statements like, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has some really good points, actually, and cholesterol is actually really good for you, The pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to know. They have not reached the alternative right stopping point yet, but everything else they believe about health and wellness is a collection of conspiracy theories. I really feel for them because they were overweight their whole life and did intermittent fasting plus the ketogenic diet during lockdown to lose a lot of weight and have kept it off. This journey has led them to give in to their tendency to feel much smarter than everyone else and to grasp at anything they think makes them the one who really knows the truth. Story 21. When I saw he was being rude to people just because they did not know as much as he did about something. Story 22. When they said, "You cannot see gravity, so how do we even know it is real?" They immediately dropped their phone and looked at me as if they had just discovered physics. Story 23. I feel like I am smart, but I often catch myself saying untrue things without knowing what I am talking about. I definitely have the sponge mentality of absorbing information. Story 24. She said that Donald Trump is good for the United States because he is good with the economy. Also, the abortion ban was apparently only to stop unsafe abortions and was enforced to protect women from dying due to malpractice. Story 25. We had a party at the end of our senior year and something was stolen. She immediately whispered to me and pointed out that it was definitely our black classmate who did it, saying that black people are no good and that it is something in their genes. She was among the top 5 highest grades in our school, unfortunately. Story 26. He confidently stated that people were making a big deal out of nothing with the tariffs. His reasoning was that only fools believed that a 100% tariff meant that the item had a 100% extra fee. Otherwise, the company selling the item would not make any money, so why would they do it? He believes it is a 100% increase on the already existing tariff. So if an item had a $5 tariff before, now it is a $10 tariff, which is not all that bad. Story 27. My boyfriend, when finding out we were getting our windows replaced, asked twice, "Oh, are they doing that window too?" "No, babe, they are going to replace all the windows and leave just the 2 random ones you asked about." Jesus Christ. Story 28. When he started believing that acquired immunodeficiency syndrome is not caused by a virus conspiracy theories back in 2000 or so, he subsequently began accepting other pseudoscientific ideas like the expanding Earth theory. He was very well read and articulate and seemed to know a lot. It turned out he was good at memorizing information but not proficient at analyzing or examining issues. Thankfully, he never embraced the flat Earth theory. He is not that foolish. Story 29. This guy was a stellar student in college, with a 4.0 grade point average and on the dean's list. So it stunned me even more when I got a random call one weekend from him, seemingly panicked. The reason was he needed help changing a tire. It was not that he did not know how to change a tire. The issue was that he could not find the information on how to do it. Story 30. Extremely knowledgeable, but I am genuinely worried about their ability to navigate the world otherwise. They can never really take accountability for anything, really. Story 31. He believed that if you do not register the marriage, then under common law the state will automatically recognize you as a husband after 7 years. The state will not, but child support will. Story 32. I started the previous discussion about how it is strange that Bambi's father is a stag while Bambi himself is a deer. At a certain point, I was told to be quiet or there would be trouble. Story 33. There are all levels of intelligence. I consider myself smart, but I wouldn't even know where the spare tire is kept in my car. Story 34. I'm that guy. I realized I am actually quite dense when I was trying to fit a new U-bend section of pipe under the sink. I took the U-bend out and realized I hadn't got a bucket for the water, so I reached up and poured it down the sink. Story 35. Not so much a friend as a manager, but we still got on well. Our team was called in for a meeting about warehouse safety because there had been an accident involving a forklift at a sister site, resulting in a worker's fatality. At the end of the meeting, the manager said, "I will update you all on his condition when I get an update." We all said, "Well, he is dead." At that point, she told us that it was not funny to joke about, especially since he could make a full recovery. Story 36. I figured out my intelligent friend was not always that sharp when they tried to microwave a metal spoon because they wanted to heat their coffee faster. Story 37. He argued that north is wherever you are facing. It was 2 a.m. and we were coming back from the club, so I just said she was right and never brought it up again. Story 38. I did not consider him intelligent, but when an engineer claims that the earth is flat, I began to consider him unintelligent. Story 39. In high school, I had a friend named Brendan. We did theater together, and I liked him because he was much more popular than me. He would always share his wisdom about how to live. He had a laid-back personality and claimed he had figured out how to try just hard enough to pass his classes. Since he planned to attend a theater conservatory, he believed they did not care much about general education graduates in high school. My parents were much stricter than his, so I felt burdened by trying too hard, only to see this clever stoner figure out how the system worked. About halfway through his senior year, he did not get into any of the theater schools he applied to because of his poor grades. His street-smart act immediately crumbled, and the once laid-back guy became bitter with jealousy toward every student who got into their dream school. Story 40, well, not stupid but a bit immature. She first misbehaved with a sweeper at my college, and when he shouted at her, she went to the head of department to complain about him. She clearly portrayed herself as the victim and kept crying. I was shocked to see that she did not even once mention her own mistake. Story 41. His constant need to get intoxicated. I understand. His brain goes 100 billion miles an hour, and he has a constant need to engage and interact with people. But after all is said and done, he is just a waste. All those books, and for what? To be a barfly. Story 42. My friend once said, I don't believe in gravity. It is just a theory. We were on the second floor. I left before it became a live experiment. Story 43. He was always assertive and confident, really projected knowledge. To be fair, he is an intelligent person, but I discovered that he also thinks he is always right about everything and cannot handle people having other opinions, even about unimportant things like band preferences. I think it was when he was telling me that something I had experienced was wrong that I realized. That particular level of delusion seemed incredibly silly. I have not seen him as intelligent since. Story 44. One of my roommates in college was very book smart. She was earning her degree in political science with a concentration in foreign policy. We attended a good school known for its hands-on approach, and it was not one of those schools that used affirmative action, so she was genuinely intelligent and definitely deserved to be there. I would read her papers as she wrote them or read the graded papers and was in awe of how well she could write. Her papers consistently received high grades, and she even became part of a small publication group at school where she occasionally wrote essays. Yet, in other areas of logic, she was not the sharpest tool. She lacked common sense and had very little emotional intelligence. She could not understand the concept of her friends being busy or unable to spend time with her, making them, including myself, feel incredibly guilty. We were made to seem like the worst people on earth for not making time for her all the time. When we tried to reason with her, she simply could not see perspectives other than her own. I wish I could provide more specific examples, but I do not feel comfortable sharing them online as they are very personal to her and unlike anyone else I have ever met. We were very close enough to be best friends, but the constant walking on eggshells whenever I slipped up was enough for me to cut ties for good after she graduated. So bright, yet so dim. Story 45. He is too obsessed with the paranormal. Seriously, and you keep saying my opinion sucks? I never believed he was smart, but he sure thinks he is. He also has some sort of brain problem which he explains as imaginary fingers in his head, and he is losing control and having a mental breakdown over it or something. What? Story 46. My smart friend spent 5 minutes trying to lock and unlock his phone. He kept swiping and tapping like crazy, waiting for a notification from his crush. Story 47. I do not think my group has a smart friend. We are all collectively not very intelligent. Or maybe we are all collectively not very intelligent around each other. But one of us is secretly smart. I do not know. Story 48. When my friend's boyfriend said, Alan Watts did not have a college degree. He just did a lot of acid, and they hired him as a professor. Story 49. I am the friend who was actually stupid. I grew up with the idea that being smart was the ideal. I never put anything into practical mode and never tried hard to understand things. Therefore, I could never get anything actually meaningful from the things I read or learned about. Story 50. I feel like my partner has these moments all the time with me now that we have moved in together. I am not stupid, just autistic and often spaced out. I am starting my paralegal degree in the fall. For example, I forgot to turn the pot on to boil rice yesterday while we were cooking lunch. I am pretty sure my IQ in her mind dropped by 20 points in that moment. Story 51. This is me. Top grade in university but can't cook. I can't retain information for more than 5 minutes. I have no idea what I am doing wrong when people tell me I said something wrong or when I remember something incorrectly. I always miss when people imply things in the most obvious ways. Sometimes I genuinely feel like I have dementia or something because how can I be so good academically and then so unskilled when it comes to actually existing as a human being? I always second guess everything I do as well because I just know I am going to get it wrong. Story 52. He was always very opinionated and thought he was smarter than conservatives or right-wingers, even though he himself failed community college twice. Story 53. He is genius-level smart and could do basically anything he wants if he tries. Instead, he dropped out of engineering school, followed an ex to a liberal arts college to win her back, majored in theater, did not win the ex back, and got a different girl pregnant because he believed her obvious lies about being on birth control. He only dated that girl to make his ex jealous. Story 54. She was a teacher considering applying for a job at an international school in a different country. We were discussing the challenges of living overseas, and she mentioned not knowing what to do if there was an emergency or a war broke out. I said that the United States Embassy would be a good resource in that case. She had no idea what an embassy was, where they were located, or that other countries have embassies in the United States. She seemed genuinely baffled that the world continued beyond her immediate surroundings. Story 55. I used to work with an engineer who seemed pretty normal and was good at his job. One morning during coffee, someone made a joke about flat earthers, and he got offended. It turned out he was convinced that the earth was flat and that gravity did not exist. Instead, he believed the disk was constantly accelerating upwards in a way that mimicked gravity. Initially, I thought it was a joke, but it turned out to be a genuine belief. To make things worse, we were marine engineers at the time working on an oil tanker. On a clear and sunny day, you could go outside and literally watch things grow over the horizon. That was a bizarre day. Story 56. When he said to me, "If you do not invite a girl out at night, she will think you are only interested in her as a friend," he then told me, "You are just clueless." When I asked, "Why would that be?" he laughed. Story 57. He read a lot and was quoting Harari, so I thought he might be smart. But then, over time, it became apparent he does not have his own opinions and just repeats what he hears. Okay, so he is not an intellectual, big deal. But then it turned out he is not even a good person. So, I lost a friend that I originally thought was a kind and smart man. He is none of those things. Story 58. When she said, "Food expiration dates are a myth," I looked at her perplexed, as if to say, "Have you never had spoiled food before?" Food most certainly does expire. Story 59. My former best friend for years, since high school, I am nearly 60, always presented himself as extremely knowledgeable and worldly. As we grew older and I gained more real-world experience, I realized he was only book smart. He had little common sense, existed in his own very small bubble, had no street smarts at all, and was ignorant about many things. Eventually, we outgrew each other. I got married, had a family, and built a life. He remained single and, last I knew, was still living in the house he grew up in, becoming more miserable with each passing year. I used to feel sorry for him, but over time he became more bitter and aggressive, so it was time to cut ties. Story 60. Not stupid, but there was a guy I went to school with who had his head way up his behind, constantly talking about how everyone except for him at the school was an idiot and he was the only one who would ever succeed. He ended up getting straight C grades in his exams. Story 61. I have a friend who is kind, funny, and fun to hang out with, but he says he is on a cut for working out. Yet all he eats is a piece of lettuce and a can of beans. Story 62. When he lifted the fuel hose to empty the contents into the car's tank, The valve at the end meant it was never going to achieve anything. Story 63. Maybe not uneducated exactly, but definitely someone without certain kinds of exposure growing up. I have a friend who is incredibly smart, very independent, a true self-made woman. She has achieved a lot despite coming from a humble background. I have always known how capable and intelligent she is, but one day we were talking about our first time flying on a plane, and she mentioned that her first trip abroad happened when she was almost an adult because, growing up, her family simply did not go on holidays, let alone ones involving flights. Over time, little things come up that make me realize just how different her upbringing was from ours. No extracurricular activities, no expensive hobbies, many experiences that were part of our childhood she has only had as an adult. That does not make me think any less of her. Quite the opposite. It makes me recognize my own privilege and admire her even more for how far she has come. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.